Now, there is a huge hypnotic pulse that wants to keep you, especially if you're, a healer or a meditator or, somebody who's interested, people use that term light worker. I don't particularly use that term, but we can put it in kind of that new age lexicon. If you're someone who has, and if you're in this room this morning, you are, and if you're on this live stream, if you're someone who's incarnated at this time to do some work around changing the consciousness of the planet, you're pushing up against a matrix that does not want you to know or think that you know how to maneuver numbers. Therefore, we get people who are kind of, and this runs way out of the new age scene, but we'll put it in the wellness and people who are trying to do good, kind of the do-gooder scene, as my grandpa would call it. He liked term. He would be like, "That's a no good Nick." I'm like, say it better in 1,000 words. I mean, you know exactly what that person's up to. No good Nick. So it put in the do-gooder realm. People who want to do something with their life that's not just raping and pillaging the earth and getting some profit. There's a huge kind of broadcast that is designed so that you're scrambled around and you feel like you don't have sovereignty around numbers. And there's a reason for that. It's not just random. It's not just, this isn't just like, this is just kind of no. There's a reason, because the moment that the people that are holding a certain frequency of consciousness and a certain value set break into the matrix and start to realize, actually, that's not money because we don't value it. So this is money. There's going to be a problem, a big problem. And so basically, we're on the precipice of that. The crypto market, it was just one little kind of shattering of that. We have no idea what's going to happen in that realm because there's all sorts of forces. There's forces that come in when something looks like it possibly could shatter the matrix or at least kind of put a hole in the matrix. They infiltrate that market as well. So the crypto market quickly got infiltrated by corporate interests. Did you notice that? So, but that was just a little kind of a mirror into if a group of people, and let's just say that group of people gets bigger and bigger, and let's say that group of people have a certain level of consciousness, and they start to go, well, actually, no, this isn't money to me. We don't accept that here. Because that's based on a valuation system that's based on scarcity, that's based on ruining the kind of resources on the planet, that's based on putting people in slavery, that's based on all of these kind of value sets that we don't believe in. So therefore, that has no value to me. Then we're going to have problems. That's a revolution, okay? And on the other side of that, you see, when we're working inside the matrix, that's one way of going. But the other way of going it is that you're inside the system and you know how to work the system, which is that's sovereignty. And that means that you're not in the kind of mind control of it's the priest to give you the sacrament, it's the banker to give you all these kinds of ideas of these power structures of the Piscean age that are falling. And the question is, are we conscious enough? Are we sovereign enough to construct some new structures that are actually going to serve? And if we don't understand how the thing works, we're not going to be able to do that. In fact, we'll kind of reconstruct a society that's basically recapitulating these kind of patriarchal constructs with a new brand. We'll rebrand the thing, which we've seen. That's what's been kind of happening in this cusp period, is that people are trying to do it differently, but because they don't understand the fundamental principles, and people are afraid, especially spiritual people, they're afraid of money. They're afraid of numbers. They don't feel sovereign around this. And there's a lot of, and so for some reason, there's been a disparage. And then we see, because we live on a polarity planet, so we're always working with kind of these polarities. Then we see kind of some of these spiritual teachers of the last part of the Piscean age, which I would put Yogi Bhajan in this category. They came to deconstruct the basically spiritual chauvinism around money. Because spiritual chauvinism is, and this happens all the time, so you should pay attention to when you're doing this, is this person is spiritual, therefore they have to fit into my chauvinistic idea of what that means. That means you're a chauvinist. It's a spiritual chauvinist. So if this person who's spiritual doesn't fit into my chauvinistic ideas about what their role should be in society, then they're not spiritual. That's a chauvinist. Do we get it? So Yogi Bhajan took incarnation, and Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche and Osho and some of these types, they took incarnation to basically blow that all up in everybody's face. And whatever people think, it was a very sophisticated thing. People had to deal with, all right, well, this person's spiritual and they have a lot of money. And what does that look like? And money's the heaviest thing. So money and sex, so it can corrupt you very quickly. We see a lot of that going on. So in order to really be able to have a relationship with this thing called money, I'll read you a great Yogi Bhajan quote, or numbers, just, numbers. We have to start to basically have a handle of our own sovereignty around how the matrix works, which is, a lot of what this training is about, is for you to start to see, and it's not complicated. I gave that quick little teaching yesterday. We were in the midst of something else, which is profit and loss. I have yet to, in my business career, meet a CPA or a CFO or anyone in charge of numbers in any corporate environment that I believe understands numbers. Not one. We've been through a lot of CPAs. I have a major problem with these people. They have no idea how numbers work. They're just the only thing they're putting numbers in a formula that nobody understands, including them. So then they run these profit and loss reports and nobody understands them, including them. And I mean, I have sat with these people. I have asked every question from here. Joanna will attest to this. I've asked every question from here and tried to get inside the thing. And it's such a heavy mind control. QuickBooks itself is just a mind control program. I'm serious. Nobody understands. Now, I'll read this quote so you get how you can use the matrix. You can use QuickBooks, but most people are getting used by QuickBooks. Nobody understands what's going on. And when they run those P&Ls, nobody can explain to me, not one of these people, why it says what it says. We got a problem on our hands. Now, Hadi Jivan said the other day, Lou Wasserman, who's also, I like this guy. He got 3 numbers on his desk every morning. And one of those numbers was what Hadi Jivan said, which is how many people bought tickets to Universal Studios today. Was that the number that he said? Yeah. Right? What is that? It's a revenue stream. This is what I said yesterday. You got to figure out, here are my 4 revenue streams in my business. It's not complicated. Or in my life. I have interest on some investment I made. I have, I make this much money at my job. I have, some side hustle that make this much money. These are my revenue streams. Or put it in a business perspective, you're making money off of 4 things, 3 things, 2 things, whatever the revenue streams are. Then you got to know what you're expending every day. I personally think you should break it up on a daily expenditures. If you know that, you know your numbers. You are a living profit and loss report. Fuck QuickBooks. Because basically what happens is, Hudman Joe's like, I'm taking off this live stream. We're gonna get sued. Hudman Joe's like, oh no. Because these things have been built so that you feel you don't understand it. And I was sitting around with a bunch of, I love these kinds of things. I was sitting around a table at one of my ex-boyfriend's weddings. And one of my favorite things to do. And I was sitting around a table, and everybody at the table, because his wife is a really amazing woman and is a kind of a hardcore, like DC business type, you know? So all of her friends have MBAs from big kind of schools, Yale, Harvard, everybody business school. And it was really cool. I love sitting around. And everyone around the table with the MBA from Yale, Harvard, Stanford, wherever else, all Ivy Leaguers, all of them work for someone else. Then it came to me, and I was like, well, it took me 15 years to get a bachelor's degree in humanities. I really fought for it too. And, I skipped 2 grades. I left high school. I left, all this kind of stuff. And I have 7 businesses growing. We just created another one without realizing it. Joanne's like, I'm sorry, who's running this new business? Because I am not. So those are the love letters I get from Joanna. She's like, we have a new business, so who's running this business? But that's very normal, that if you're breaking inside, you're not taught in the institutions how to break inside these matrices. And they don't want you to. So then I was sitting around with a bunch of those types. These people were amazing people, very intelligent, cool people. And I was sitting around at another thing where people were, there was a P&L that was getting passed around, a bunch of these kind of business consultant types. And none of them could explain to me the P&L. Profit and loss. Exactly. But we're not taught. So nobody could explain to me. So this is a profit and loss report from a business that was in question. And all these consultants had been hired and were getting paid quite a lot of money. And none of them could explain the profit and loss report in simple English. There's a reason for that. Because even if they did understand, they don't want you to understand. And my experience is nobody understands. Very, very few people. So we got to change this. So we're going to work on it a little bit today. We have a special guest coming, and we're gonna because we got to get out of the kind of hall of mirrors of our families. Because I said this on the first day of business school. I thought this was quite interesting. There's this research done that parents don't explain these things to their kids because they feel too guilty about their own financial disasters or just their own misunderstandings of finances. So they don't sit their kids down and talk to their kids about okay, this is how we do. And I thought that's, I think that's really, I feel that's quite true. And then take it another level when we're working with business, and we can't penetrate through this kind of mind control thing that's really about you not having sovereignty over your inflow and your outflow. And that's all the profit and loss report is. And so I've asked literally, I don't know how many, now we have a very, kind of high level CFO type thing. She's awesome. She's really smart, but we're speaking a different language. I literally, and so I kind of finally have just been I'm not coming to those meetings anymore. Wasting my time. Because because I know how much money, because I'm watching those numbers. I have 2 numbers that I look at every day. Lou had 3, I have 2. But I look at them for each business entity. And that's how much we made that day and how much we spent. And if there's a stream of days that are in the red, I sit everybody down and figure out what the fuck we're going to do. Because then we have a problem on our hands. So nobody's surprised. Do we get it? So these things are, simple. And I want you to crack the code of this stuff because, and that's just one level of these numbers. But this is a game you're getting played. And that is really the way that the matrix works, is to keep you out of your own kind of power around this stuff. And we want you to feel like you can come into any situation and you can look at it and figure out where are the resources, which is why I wanted you to make those resource lists. Where are the resources? That's what Gyan Chakra and Hast Kriya does it too. That it gives you the kind of clarity to look at where are the resources, what do I need, how do I need to move resources around, those numbers that you're looking at will give you direction on where do I need to be more resourceful? Where do I need to pay more attention? What's happening? Like, I remember one time, Joanna, we like to print like our pretty flyers, and Joanna's like, our printing bill was $1,000 this month or something like this. And I remember the first week I opened this Rama, my friend Amanda, who's a great businesswoman, she said one of the employees printed something in color instead of in black and white. And she looked at me and she said, there goes your profit for the day. There goes your profit for the day. Because a lot of businesses, including maybe yours, your profit margin isn't that big. And if you have a product, your profit margin isn't that big. If you have a service, it depends. But if you're working on a product or even something that's particularly if something has a shelf life, your profit is usually much smaller. So, but no matter what, especially if you're in your startup phase, which is 85 years, and then you die. And then as Honey Jeevan looked at me the other day and said, and then Yogi Bhajan's just going to slam you into another body and make you work for him. I was like, thanks, Honey Jeevan. And those are our moments of intimacy together. I said something to him. He's like, great, then you're going to die and Yogi Bhajan's going to slam you in another body and you work for it. I was like, I know, I get it. But so, if you're in the startup phase, your profit margin is usually somewhere under 20%. And if you have which means, you may not be in the black yet, but I'm saying that even once you get in the black, the profit margin's very, very small. Yogi Bhajan said a viable business is profit margin somewhere between 10 and 20%. Once you get all of the expenses run. Do we get that? That's not very much. Therefore, when your employee prints something in color, there goes your profit. And if you know your numbers, you've already run those numbers because those color cartridges are $85. We get that? Okay, so this stuff, but that should be running through your aura constantly. The aura's, it basically, if you start to kind of get this, the aura is just running numbers constantly. You're just running numbers, not because you're obsessed with them, but because everything is a code. Everything's a code. And if you want to play the game at a high level, you're running those codes through the thing. Through your neurology, you could call it your aura, because I'm a visual person. So I'm just running this stuff literally through my desktop, called my aura. And you'll get better and better at this. Now, if you have a little fear of the numbers, this is what I want us to really focus on this today.